Welcome to the Authentic Change Podcast. I'm Mike Horn, your host, and this podcast is for leaders and coaches who need and want fresh perspectives on what it means to live and to lead authentically. You're a leader who wants to make a difference, but sometimes you feel stuck. You know there's more to life and to leadership than what you're currently experiencing. It can be tough to figure out how to grow as a leader. You might be reading all the blogs and books, but it still feels like you're not making progress. You might even be feeling like you're doing everything wrong. On Authentic Change with Mike Horn, we interview experts who share their insights on how to live and lead authentically. Our guests are trendsetters in building great leaders, teams, and organizations. We provide fresh perspectives on what it means to live with purpose and authenticity. Welcome to this episode of the Authentic Change Podcast. Welcome to this episode of Authentic Change with Mike Horn. I'm absolutely delighted to have in studio today Rick Elmore. And Rick has a background that I think many of you, most of you in the audience will find completely fascinating. And as you listen to Rick today and then eventually get in touch with him through his LinkedIn profile at Rick-Elmore or his business simplynoted.com. I think you'll find him very engaging, charismatic. But let me tell you a little bit about Rick and what interested me in having Rick Elmore as a guest on this episode of Authentic Change with Mike Horn. Rick is the Chief Executive Officer of Simply Noted, and I'm going to let him tell you all about that. I think it's a fascinating endeavor, particularly for human resources leaders, and coaching clients might be another resource or another tool that you might have. And also, Rick is a speaker, an entrepreneur, a professional salesperson in his past life and maybe his current life too. I'm not sure. We can ask him. A retired NFL athlete, startup consultant. For all my engineers in the audience, he's also a robotics engineer. So with all of that said, I'd like to welcome you, Rick Elmore, to Authentic Change. So Rick, say a little bit about yourself to our audience, please.
Yeah, well, thank you for that introduction. I truly appreciate it. My background's kind of crazy. Really grew up in I would say a lower middle class family. I was the first person to go to college. I found a real liking to sports early on. Could never sit still in class. I feel like that resonates with a lot of people. Jokingly, I got tested for ADD like 7 times in my childhood because my mom's like, you just can't sit still. But I always was never diagnosed with it. I just think I liked being outside more. But yeah, I played sports growing up. Went to the University of Arizona and played football there under Mike Stoops in the early 2000s. Had a really good career. 3-year starter. I led the Pac-10 back then in multiple stat categories, like sacks and tackles for loss. It's really important for my position. So I was really, really fortunate to have a good career there. But then was drafted into the NFL in 2011. Got to live out my childhood dream. Played in the NFL for 3 years. My rookie year was actually drafted to the Green Bay Packers. The year after they won the Super Bowl. My coach was Kevin Green, the late Kevin Green. He was Hall of Fame linebacker. So tons of stories. 2012, almost went to the Super Bowl. Lost in the NFC Championship game. So a lot of fun stories there. But yeah, hung up the cleats and got into the corporate world for 6 years. My background's in athletics, sales, and marketing. But in 2017, I got a weird itch. I just could not scratch. I wanted something else. Like most entrepreneurs, I went back and did my MBA. And that's how I stumbled upon starting the company Simply Noted. And 5.5 years later, we've built a robotics, software, and industrial automation company. So it's been a crazy wild ride.
What do you think's next, Rick?
For us? For Simply Noted or for me?
Yeah.
Well, I think, we're completely self-funded and we're just kind of starting to hit that hockey stick growth here, 5.5 years in. So I'm really just trying to enjoy where I'm at now. I've always focused on future goals, which has been good for me because it's helped me, chase like the next thing. But, I have a 3 and a 5-year-old now. I'm trying to slow down, trying to enjoy where I'm at. But I'm not really sure what's going to come after Simply Noted. I think when you start a business, like, you just become so much more aware of what's out there, and I'm excited for what's next after. But, I plan on being a part of Simply Noted for the next 3 to 5 years, but want to sell it, but trying just to appreciate and be where I'm at and just be in the moment.
Yeah, in many ways, you are a poster child for transitions, and I'd like to talk about the transitions and what you've done to hold on and to let go and to, hopefully let your authentic self shine. Today, you're CEO of Simply Noted. You're a dad. You've got a 3 and a 5-year-old. Before that, you were selling a top 1% corporate salesperson. Goals have always been important to you. You were in the NFL. You couldn't sit still. What's behind all with these transitions? What have you held on to? What did you need to let go of? Assuming that you've been successful in these transitions.
Well, that's a great question. So I kind of went through an early childhood trauma, like all of us do. My dad passed away when I was 7.
I'm
Really
sorry
didn't
about
understand.
that.
Nah, it's defined who I am, and it's made me who I am. So, and I appreciate that. But when that happened, I was really kind of confused. Didn't really understand like the power of that. And what my mom did, she kept us busy because like the worst thing you could do is like when you're going through stress or anxiety or something like that is be still, like because you just start overthinking everything. But a really defining moment for me was and this is why I fell in love with football, was when it's a great thing about sports. Our house was broken for a couple years because, the person who set the foundation for our family was just gone, out of the blue for no reason. Like it was just a shock. So when I got into playing football, and I played other sports, soccer, basketball, no other sport was like this. A couple of years, it was year one. It was year one playing football. you know, it's kind of, this is a good hard, it's a hard, it's very impactful to me. I remember like a third game into the season, I was really trying to find myself within this sport. Football is very violent and physical, and you tend to like fight with people after plays just because of all the, testosterone and whatever. I remember I would fight with like my teammates just because they were a year or two older than me. And when you're small, that's a big deal. But I remember this, and this was very impactful for me, and it still impacts me today. About 3 games into the season, we were playing a game, and I got into like a scuffle with somebody after a play. And these same guys that I fought with, just like, how you fight with people in real life, but these same guys I would fight with during practice, when I got in a fight with somebody else in the game, they came and got my back immediately. They stepped up, they protected me, they backed me. And I get chills thinking about it because in that moment, when my family was broken, I felt like I had a new family outside of my family. It was a team that got my back. I would fight with them at practice, but then they would get my back in real life, like during a game. So that was a very like profound moment for me early on. And I was like 9 or 10 years old. And I think that's really what kind of helped me through that, younger time, or that, child traumatic experience that I went through. But
I'd like to pick up on that because in many ways it evokes, for me, this from scuffle to smooth. You talk about this pleasure you received in scuffling with others, and yet you have a smooth demeanor. And I'm wondering about this juxtaposition of strength and of talent, and how that sits for you in your work and in your pursuits and in your goal setting.
Yeah, well, it took me like 15 years to. I was a very angry, mad person. And I think that's why football was always something it was my outlet. I could take it out there. And I think, a question, something that you asked earlier is like what was something you had to let go of, to become the version of you who you are today, to be better. I had a fear of failing for a very long time. I remember breaking down, multiple times throughout my career, like in college, like during the NFL Combine, all this pressure, you're in all these high pressure moments where you have to perform. You only get one opportunity. And like the fear of failing sometimes would be paralyzing. But that's something, when I got to being an entrepreneur, I looked to fail fast and fail often and learn and grow. And I think that was a maturing moment for me. A lot of people just, they they get like analysis paralysis. They don't act because they don't want to take the risk and they don't want to fail. But if I didn't fail early and fail often as an entrepreneur, we wouldn't have scaled this. Not with my sales and marketing background, I wouldn't have been able to build a robotic software and industrial automation company the way we have if I didn't take those small risks, fail, learn, and grow. So that was something I had to let go of and embrace, was failing. And I think a lot of people, and it's really hard to do that because failing is uncomfortable and people don't like to feel uncomfortable. You lose a lot of sleep, but that was something, it took me about 15 years of like going through all that anger and trying to have all that control on not failing to when I just let go and I looked at it a different way. You just got to turn around and, see your weaknesses from a different angle. And you have to take your weaknesses and turn them into strengths. Even though I still focus a lot on my strengths, I still, look at my weaknesses and try to turn them and get a different point of view and grow from them.
Let's talk about the relationship between failure and goals. I mean, you've described yourself as a goal-oriented or a goal-achieving person. When there's failures, it's easy to give up on goals. But in terms of failing fast, and do you adjust your goals? Do you abandon them? Do you just take on new goals? Where do those sit in terms of you right now, Rick Elmore?
So I think it's important to not be completely like stingy or like dead set on what is going to happen 5 years from now. We've pivoted left and right constantly. We have to adjust. We're a startup with no funding, no loans, no debt, no investors. So we have to move as the market shifts. But we've stayed steadfast in our beliefs of becoming the best handwriting company in the world. How our customers use our company is, they dictate that, how they want to use our product, but, our product is being the best handwriting company in the world. So, 5 years ago, what our company looked like, we were going straight after marketing, but now we're more after like CX and customer experience because, that's a big buzzword in the industry right now. And they're trying to give better experiences to their clients. So I think the vision of the company, has stayed the same, but, you have to adjust. You can't just like ignore what your customers are telling you. You can't ignore what the industry or the world's telling you. You have to keep your eyes open. But I think I'm a very competitive person. A lot of those transferable skills I developed as an athlete has helped me be successful. The grit, the passion, the desire, the competitiveness, the teamwork, pushing through when times are hard, like football's hard, like hell week, 2 weeks of just getting your butt to, starting the season. So I was very lucky to have almost 2 decades of like all that stuff I developed as an athlete, before I got into the business and entrepreneur world.
You ever feel that anything's missing?
I think we all are on our own journey.
I was just listening to competitive grit, tenacity, endurance, surviving hell.
I think everybody can think of what they don't have, but if you get stuck on that, it's going to prevent you from moving forward. Like I see people who don't have to work as hard as I do because they come from money, and if I sat there and focused on them and focused on what I didn't have, that's not going to do me any good. So there's always something that you don't have that somebody else has, but you have to see what you do have and maximize the benefits or maximize the potential of what you do have. I started this company 5 years ago. Like I literally had no money. Like I started on a $10,000 0% interest credit card. And that's how I funded my startup, was on a 0% interest credit card. Didn't have money.
What is Simply Noted? Let's talk about Simply Noted and what it is.
Yeah.
So Simply, and everyone, you'll find it in the show notes for today, but simplynoted.com.
So Simply Noted started when I went back into my MBA in 2017. Basically, what we do is we use robots that we've built here in-house to automate and scale sending genuine handwritten notes. It's easy as sending an email. It's easy as automating as sending an email. You can personalize a handwritten note just through our software, and our machines will write out your handwritten notes in your handwriting style, put your signature on it, on your custom stationery. And we're trying to build a platform, for all these companies to automate it or scale it. So we've been doing that for 5 years. This was my first jump into entrepreneurship. This was me taking a big risk, and it's been very rewarding. everything I've learned from this experience, I couldn't have got this from 40 years, in my normal W-2 job, because it's just forced me so far outside my comfort zone to get that personal growth and and to continue to push forward, because you have to.
Who are the customers of Simply Noted? Is it business to business? Is it direct to consumer? Is it all types?
Yeah, so that was another problem. It was really hard to scale Simply Noted in the early days, because we basically, anybody who would give us money, we would take it, because we needed to pay for stuff. But the big industries are political, nonprofit, home service, any B2B brand. They'll use it for their clients or their employees. Just did a mailing for Ford. Ford sent some handwritten notes to their employees, thanking them for whatever it was. So, I mean, it's a tool for anybody to use to either like build a relationship with their employees or their clients, or to, start a new relationship, because the open rate with a handwritten envelope is so high. It's like 99%.
And then inside is handwritten too, or it can be. I guess it just depends on the purchase.
Yeah, it's like it's going to look like you sent it. It came from your desk. Envelope and card. So it's pretty wild.
It is in some ways the real deal. It's the genuine thing. It's the same way we describe authenticity or authentic, genuine, the real deal. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I think Simply Noted is the last form of communication that people think can be automated or scaled. Email is automated. A text message can be automated. That direct mail piece you think is just printed and automated. When you get a handwritten note in your mailbox,
all of our social media is automated.
Yeah, everything's automated. And we're really close. We just integrated OpenAI's AI system into our system. So I mean, we're really close to this being like literally 100% hands off. But it's a few more years before like the whole entire public will know what this is. It's just one of those tools that businesses need to use, because it's in their tool belt. I'm not saying it's the only business tools that you need to use, but it's like you need to have an email tool, you need to have a calling tool, you need to have a mailing tool. It's just another tool in the tool belt for businesses.
Now, can I buy it as just an individual consumer and say, "Oh, hey, Rick, could you personalize some notes for me? I want to send these." Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anybody can send one card on our website, or they can send 100,000. And it's as easy as just sending an email. All you need to know is their address. That's it.
Given these experiences that you have and the transitions you've made, and how you're living out your life and work, what would you teach people now? I mean, what would you have to teach about all of these transitions and the acquisitive successes you've had?
Well, number one is commitment. Be committed to yourself. Be committed to your goals. I think what's really hard today or nowadays is that we live in this social media world where they make it look like you're an overnight success. Like if you're not, I made $100,000 in 3 months, and then try to sell you on a program, right? I think there's a lot of bad advice out there. And it's okay, like, to manage your own expectations. Success takes a long time. Building relationships takes a long time. Like my best friends, I've known them for almost 30 years, right? And that as the relationship has grown over time. So good things take time. It takes 10 years to become an overnight success. You have to be committed to your goals. And I'm a big mountaineer. I like climbing. I like backpacking. Like when you get to the bottom of that mountain, like you can see the peak, right? But it's like, you got to take one step at a time to get to the peak, right? So a lot of people look at that peak, they get overwhelmed, but just know a journey of a 10,000 steps starts with a single step. You just every day wake up, take one more step, be committed. A lot of days are going to be hard, but just don't give up, don't quit, take a break. And if you do that, within a couple of years, you're going to look back and like, wow, I've made a lot of progress. And then your goal is going to grow too. Like literally, like what I wanted to do 5 years ago, like, I mean, we've already done it. And now I'm like, oh, what are we going to do from 5 years from now? So I just think you got to be committed. Don't quit. Take all the little, there's a lot of bad advice out there, but you can like try to learn a little bit from everybody, but understand it just takes time.
So that's it. Those are important lessons that you can teach around commitment, around persistence, consistency. I'm an avid hiker. I've done some climbing too, but I hike up into the desert every day. Get to see some endangered peninsula bighorn sheep, and I think about the days I'll be lucky enough to see some mountain lions or something. But had some, just great sightings I see every day in the desert, and it really inspires a lot of my work, and certainly allows me to declutter my client work. It's a great source of inspiration for me. This week I've written about the relationship between an oasis. I'm lucky enough to pass on a favorite hike, 2 oases in the desert. And I've written about the relationship, about renewing and refreshing. Today, the smoke trees are just in full bloom. They're in abundance as you begin to, as I began to make an ascent earlier today. And there's so much paradox in the desert. And I wonder, if you were coaching people to achieving their goals, to staying committed, how would you approach that coaching assignment?
It's mental toughness. You have to get good at controlling your thoughts. You have to protect your mind. You have to build your mind up as a fortress. You can't take offense to when people criticize you. You can't get overwhelmed when when problems start happening. You can't get jealous because someone looks like they're being more successful than you. You can't fear change. And I think all those things, I think the mental game is the hardest thing you're ever going to have to do in your life.
So how do you help someone with that? I mean, you've been in sports, athletes, business.
Well, for me, I challenge myself physically every single day. I'll do something hard every single day. I have an ice bath. I get in an ice bath. I know that's become very trendy, but I've been doing that since I was 18 years old. Working out, you want to do something really hard every day, do a back squat. That's a perfect metaphor for life. Put some heavy weight on your back, drop down, and stand up. I mean, that is a perfect metaphor for when life gets hard. It's going to knock you down, and you got to have the strength to stand up. I train for Ironmans. I'm 6'5", 260, and I run, 3 to 5 miles a few times a week. All that stuff's uncomfortable. You got to put yourself in uncomfortable positions to train your mind, because your mind's going to give up way before your body gives up. Your mind's going to give up way before you're ready to give up on your business. You have to literally challenge yourself, put yourself in uncomfortable situations. I've done, I'm sure if you're a mountaineer, I've done Mount Whitney in California a few times.
Oh, me too.
That hike sucks. I mean, for me, it's hard.
No, it's a great hike. It is hard.
It's hard though. I mean, it's for a 1-day hike that kicks your butt, right? I just did Mount Humphreys here in Arizona last weekend, and that's not a terribly hard hike, but it's still the highest peak in Arizona. But I constantly challenge myself like that physically, because when you're putting yourself through physical stress, your brain's like, stop, 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 stop. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to stop. It's like the David Goggins mindset. He's just, he's made it mainstream. But for me, that's how I do it. I challenge myself physically, because when you're in an uncomfortable situation physically, that's when you have a chance to have your mind tell you to stop, and then you can control it.
Yeah, it's a great way to think about it, because with my clients, what I'm often doing is we're looking for ways to test out new behaviors. It's a way of thinking about that challenge of it, to do it in the workplace, and to move into a zone that's unfamiliar territories. It's a great analogy. Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's a little different in business too. You got to practice patience and discipline. It's you want to move faster, but you can really damage your business or your career by not being patient, by trying to force something. So, in business, you got to make sure that when things are ready to happen, you're ready for them to happen. It's just like when I was an athlete, we practiced 5 days a week. Right. So we were preparing ourselves for the game. We'd break down film, we'd watch the opponent, we would know when they lined up in this formation, what they were going to do. So we would be ready to react. It's the same thing in life. You got to practice, you got to put in the reps. So when you get that meeting with somebody, you're prepared to respond, not react. When you react, you tend to freeze and make mistakes. When you respond, you come through more clear, more concise, more confident. And that's because you're prepared. So I think you got to challenge yourself
opens up the
physically.
ability to listen.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Like you're consuming what they're saying so you can think, right? Like you're listening and then you can respond versus like, oh, they caught you off guard and now you're reacting and you're falling back to your lowest level of like base knowledge, which isn't good. So I think, I keep going back to being an athlete, but it's really helped me shape me to be who I am today and helped me get as far as I have in my career.
Well, you had a lot of reinforcement for those very positive behaviors that create your momentum and your drive.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Rick, so people can get in touch with you on LinkedIn. They can find you simply by typing your name. If people want to get to you directly, it's Rick Elmore on LinkedIn. And also people can visit you at simplynoted.com. Rick, if you were to offer some guidance, here we are in the middle of June when we're recording this, it'll air a little later this year. If you were, helping people to think about their goals for the second half of the year in terms of professional development, what one or two pieces of advice would you give before we wrap up?
One thing that was in our locker room growing up was hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Know that, just through persistence and consistency and working hard, that's going to take you as close as possible to your goals. I think a lot of people take their foot off the gas in the second half of the year, but understand that creates opportunity for you. I would just, the hardest thing about discipline is showing up and doing the things you don't like every day, but act like you like doing it. But yeah, I would say just show up, work your butt off, outwork everybody around, and stay disciplined and patient. If you do that, I'm telling you, like I'm a perfect example. I don't come from money. As the first person to go to college, I have an athletics background, and I've literally built a robotic software and industrial automation company, like because of just that persistence, drive, consistency, discipline, and creative problem solving. Like creative problem solving, you got to be able to. You can't just throw money at your problems. You have to get creative. So yeah, I would say, just work hard, stay consistent, be disciplined, show up and act like you like doing the things you don't like doing. And everything else will take care of itself.
Rick Elmore, thank you so much. Thanks for your wisdom, your guidance, and your energy. So until the next episode of Authentic Change with Mike Horn, everyone stay well.
Thank you for listening to the Authentic Change podcast. I'm delighted that you've tuned in to listen. Please visit the show notes for links to topics discussed in today's podcast. To download a free ebook on authentic change and leadership and to subscribe to my newsletter, please visit mike-horn.com. Once again, mike-horne.com, mike-horn.com. Once again, thank you for listening to the Authentic Change podcast.